want to talk to you guys about this topic because it's one that I know TSG, we've seen and been involved in a lot of discussions in the past month in the Illuvium community about how to launch the overall games. They've got several titles that are coming out. There was just this week, on one of the AMA calls with Kieran, they discussed, how should they launch the Illuvatars, sort of the profile pictures of Illuvium. They've said they're going to have an album collection type of approach to them. And the question was, do we launch so that you can just buy your profile pictures, for those that are interested in them early, or do we wait until we've built out the full album collectible approach so you can say, oh, I want to capture all the water Illuvatars in this first batch, or all the Illuvatars that have multicolored sunglasses or whatever? Like, do you want to know what that album structure is beforehand, and then we'll launch the sale afterwards? So this question of modular versus feature complete launches from both the gameplay and an NFT standpoint, I think this is an interesting one, and I want to get both of your take on it. How have you seen games that have launched partially and scaled up over time to have the kind of full features? How have you seen that be successful or not in the past?
I want to get Will's take on it first, because we've obviously had conversations, like you say, about Illuvium and everything that's going on there. So I want to kind of get, I don't know how deep you are into Illuvium and what's going on there. So I want to hear what you think about this whole modular versus full release thing first.
Right. Yeah. I obviously have a way fresher opinion on it, coming from just what I've done in Web 2 and the games that I've been playing there. I do think it's a good idea to I love when they launch some kind of pre demo or pre beta or 10 hours of gameplay and stuff like that. You see EA Sports do a lot of that with their games, and I always enjoy it. Release date, when I'm anticipating a game, release date is so exciting, but if I get to play a week before, I love that, and it just builds up the momentum so much more as well. You watch all the streams, you watch all the YouTube videos, you try to learn all the strategies before you get the game. So I think it's a good thing, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it from the experience you've had in Web3, and also what are the pros versus the cons. TSG, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'll kind of talk specifically about the thing with Illuvium, what's going on there, and then we can talk about it in a broader sense. But right now, with the Illuvatars, for those that don't know, Illuvatars are going to be the PFPs, the profile picture project from Illuvium. So essentially, it's going to be your NFT customizable profile picture. And like Annie said, they're now implementing a new way, a new mini game collection game, essentially. So if you collect all of the tier 1s, you get a reward. If you collect all of the tier 5s, you get a reward. If you get all of the Earths, you get a reward. If you get all of the same background, you get an award. Things like that, right? So I think I used to be very much for a modular release. And then I've just spoken to more and more people in the community, and I realize now that I actually don't think that's the way to go. I think for this specific example, I think a full release just makes more sense, because we've seen so much we talked about it last week extensively, Star Atlas giving you a ship that, not even giving you, selling you a ship that you can't use for 5 to 7 years, right? And then we've had, even in Illuvium, we've been sold land that we can't use yet. And if that's always going to be the thing where we're going to be sold NFTs and sold things that are promised utility much later, but we don't get the utility, it's man, what's going on? I think it starts to, one time, understandable, it's reasonable, you're working on it, dates get pushed back. Second time, it's it's starting to feel a bit suspect. Third time, fourth time, you're damn, you start to lose trust in that project. So I think if it is possible, it's much better to have that full release. As for games, the PFE project is definitely a separate instance. But if we're talking about the game, there are pros and cons to having a full release and a modular release. Modular release obviously means that players can get into it. They're anticipating the game. They're not kind of just left in the dark and saying, oh man, when's the game coming? When's the game coming? It engages the community, right? So that's the positive. The negative is it takes away the wow factor, because that's the whole point of the anticipation. It builds up and you get to see the whole thing. So if we understand that both of those matter, it then becomes the balance of how much can we release before and how much should we hold on to, because you don't want to let them play the entire game as a demo. And then the problem with that is, if you let someone play the entire game for free and you give it to them and be like, oh, yo, by the way, we're slowly releasing it. We're building it up. Now we've built it up so much you have the full game. And then we switch on the NFTs and the blockchain stuff. It's like, oh, now you have to pay for it. You have now just turned the game from being a completely free-to-play experience because they've been exposed and they've had so much experience with the slow modular releases and getting the full thing. And now they're like, yo, now I have to pay for it? That, again, is going to leave a sour taste in someone's mouth. But if you give them just, for example, like the survival mode or like a small sector, like one small module, and that's it, that to me seems reasonable. But again, it's like, that opens up the conversation of, does that get boring? Do people want to watch it anymore? Like, it's a tough balance that I personally don't have the answer to. I would like to see, it's like, I don't have the answer, I'll be honest. I want to see like a little bit of like a little bit of a modular release, but I want them to keep a lot. Like the majority of the game should be kept for the full release. Yeah.